The windshield wipers screamed against the ice. Vivian Ashworth, ranked the 7th wealthiest woman in America, pressed her forehead against the steering wheel and whispered something she had not said in 23 years. Please, God, don't let me die alone. Her Mercedes had coughed its last mechanical breath 6 minutes ago. The heater was already dead. The temperature outside was 17 below zero and plunging. And the phone call she had received 40 minutes earlier, the one that sent her speeding recklessly into rural Montana in the middle of the worst December storm in a decade, had contained 4 words that shattered everything she believed about her life. 4 words from a dying man's mouth. Your son is alive. Now, as the blizzard swallowed her car like a white, howling mouth, Vivian realized that the secret she had buried for a quarter century might die with her tonight, frozen on a country road no GPS could find. She had exactly 9 minutes before hypothermia became irreversible. She knew this because she had built a pharmaceutical empire, because she understood the human body the way most people understood their morning coffee. Intimately, scientifically, coldly. Her long, silky hair, usually immaculate, was plastered to her pale cheeks. Her fingers were already losing sensation. Through the whiteout she could see nothing. No headlights, no farmhouse, no salvation. At 48 years old, Vivian Ashworth had survived a hostile boardroom takeover, a public divorce, 3 assassination-level business betrayals, and the private grief of being told her newborn son had died during delivery. She had not survived all of that to freeze to death in a ditch. Then she saw the light. Faint, golden, impossibly warm. Swinging through the storm like a pendulum. A lantern. Someone was walking toward her car, leaning hard into the wind. Broad, shouldered and deliberate. The figure reached her door and knocked on the frosted window with bare knuckles. When Vivian managed to crack the door open, she saw a young man, mid-20s, fair-skinned, jaw tight against the cold, eyes startlingly green beneath a snow-crusted wool hat. He was tall, lean but powerfully built. The kind of frame that came from years of real labor, not a gym membership. He looked at her with an expression that was not pity, not surprise, but something more unsettling: recognition. Ma'am, you have about 4 minutes before you stop shivering. And that is the part where you do not want to find out what comes next, he said. His voice cutting through the wind with a calm, almost amused authority. He extended his hand. My truck is 50 yards east. Can you walk, or do I need to be heroic about this? I can walk, Vivian said through chattering teeth. Famous last words, he replied, and before she could protest, he pulled her from the car, wrapped his heavy canvas coat around her shoulders, and guided her through the screaming dark with one arm firm around her waist. His name was Caleb Mercer. His truck was ancient, rusted, and miraculously warm. The heater roared like a furnace. He drove slowly through the whiteout, one hand steady on the wheel, the other adjusting the vent so it blew directly at her. He did not ask her name. He did not ask why a woman in a $200,000 car was alone on a back road in a blizzard. He simply drove, humming something low and tuneless, until they reached a small farmhouse surrounded by snow, buried fences, and a barn with a light burning inside. Welcome to the Mercer estate, he said dryly, gesturing at the modest home. Try to contain your awe. Despite everything, the terror, the cold, the phone call still ringing in her skull, Vivian laughed. It was involuntary, rusty. The sound of a woman who had forgotten that laughter could be surprised out of you. Inside, the farmhouse was small but scrupulously clean. A wood stove radiated heat in the main room. There were bookshelves, real bookshelves, overflowing, spines cracked from use. Caleb handed her a thick wool blanket,
Welcome to my humble
then
abode.
disappeared
Please
into
come
the
in out
kitchen.
cold.
Thank you. It
He
looks so
returned
warm
with a
and
mug of
inviting.
something that smelled like cinnamon and whiskey. Drink this. It is not elegant, but it will remind your blood that it is supposed to move. Vivian wrapped her hands around the mug. The warmth was almost painful. She studied him as he crouched to stoke the wood stove, firelight catching the sharp line of his jaw, the careful way he moved, the quiet competence in every gesture. He was young, absurdly young, but there was something in his eyes that was not young at all. "You live here alone?" she asked. "Me, 14 cattle, 2 barn cats who despise me, and approximately 6,000 books," he said without turning around. "It is a full social calendar. No family." The slightest pause. His hand stilled on the iron poker. Then he resumed stoking, and his voice was easy again, too easy. The way a person sounds when they have rehearsed casualness over a wound. Not anymore. If you are already feeling the tension building between these two, you are going to want to stay for what happens next. Because the secret Caleb is hiding will change everything. If this story is gripping you, hit that like button right now and keep watching. Over the next 2 days, the blizzard imprisoned them. Roads were impassable. Cell towers were down. For the first time in perhaps 2 decades, Vivian Ashworth was completely unreachable. No board meetings. No encrypted emails from her CFO. No updates from the private investigator she had hired 6 hours before the storm. The one tasked with verifying those 4 impossible words, "Your son is alive." And in that silence, something unexpected happened. She began to breathe. Caleb was unlike any man she had ever known, and she had known powerful men, senators, tech moguls, Wall Street predators in bespoke suits. Caleb wore flannel and work boots. He quoted Dostoevsky while frying eggs. He made her laugh with a deadpan delivery that she initially mistook for rudeness before realizing it was armor, polished, deliberate, and concealing something vast. "So," he said on the second morning, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs across the table, "are you going to tell me why a woman wearing a watch worth more than my entire property was driving alone into a Montana blizzard? Or should I just assume you have spectacularly bad judgment?" Vivian raised an eyebrow. "That watch is worth more than this property and the neighboring 3. Fantastic. And yet here you are, eating my eggs, which cost approximately 37 cents. Life is a beautiful mystery." She bit her lip to suppress a smile. "I was looking for someone in a blizzard. I was not planning on the blizzard. Nobody plans on the blizzard, and yet the blizzard always comes. There is a metaphor in there, but I will let you find it. You seem like a woman who prefers to discover things herself." He was right. She did. And what she was discovering, moment by moment, was that this young farmer with his sharp tongue and gentle hands was dismantling walls she had spent decades constructing. He listened differently than other people. When she spoke, he did not calculate her net worth or her usefulness. He simply listened, head slightly tilted, green eyes steady, as if her words were worth hearing regardless of who she was. On the second evening, they sat by the wood stove. The wind howled outside. Caleb had opened a bottle of wine that he admitted, with characteristic honesty, was terrible. "I bought it 2 years ago for an occasion that never happened," he said, pouring her a glass. "So you are doing me a favor by helping me dispose of the evidence." What occasion? Again that pause, that careful rearrangement of his expression. "I was going to propose to someone. She left before I got the chance. Turns out she wanted a life that did not include Montana cattle, or me. In that order of priority, she was a fool, Vivian said, and was startled by how fiercely she meant it. Caleb looked at her for a long moment. The fire painted his face in gold and shadow. You know, for a woman who nearly froze to death in a ditch, you are dangerously kind. I am never kind. Ask anyone on Wall Street. I do not know anyone on Wall Street. I know cattle. And cattle are excellent judges of character. You passed. My cows like you. Your cows have not seen my quarterly earnings reports. He laughed, a real laugh, warm and surprised, and something shifted in the room. Something neither of them named but both felt, like a change in air pressure before a storm. What Vivian did not know, what she could not have known, was that Caleb Mercer knew exactly who she was. He had known from the moment he saw her through the blizzard, not because of her car or her watch or her designer coat. He knew because her face had been pinned to the wall of his father's study for 11 years, circled in red marker, surrounded by newspaper clippings and legal documents and letters that were never sent. Vivian Ashworth, CEO of Ashworth, Greystone Pharmaceuticals, the woman whose company had purchased and demolished the town of Ridgewater, Montana, in a land acquisition deal 12 years ago. The woman whose signature was on the contract that forced 47 families from their homes, including the Mercer family. The woman who, according to Caleb's father, had destroyed their lives without ever learning their names. Caleb's father, Thomas Mercer, had been the mayor of Ridgewater, a proud, stubborn, loving man who fought the acquisition for 3 years before the courts ruled against him. He lost his home, his community, his purpose. He began drinking. He stopped eating. On a Tuesday morning in March, 6 years ago, Caleb found him in the barn, lifeless, a bottle of whiskey in one hand and that red, circled photograph of Vivian Ashworth in the other. Caleb had saved Vivian from the blizzard, but he had not done it out of pure mercy. He had done it because he had been waiting, for years, for a lifetime, to look into the eyes of the woman who destroyed his family. He wanted her to know his name. He wanted her to feel the weight of what she had taken. He wanted justice, or revenge, or something he could not quite name that lived in the darkest room of his grief. But now, sitting across from her in firelight, watching her laugh at his jokes with her guard dissolving, watching the sadness behind her composure, like a crack in porcelain, he was realizing something terribly. He was falling in love with her. If that revelation just sent a chill down your spine, you need to hear what happens next. Drop a comment right now telling me what you think Caleb will do. Confront her or protect her, and subscribe so you do not miss how this unfolds. On the third morning, the storm weakened enough for Caleb to reach the road with his truck. He could have driven her to the nearest town. He could have ended this. Instead, he told her the roads were still too dangerous, and she believed him. Because she wanted to believe him. Because something in this small farmhouse felt more honest than any penthouse she had ever occupied. They spent the day in the barn. Caleb taught her to feed the cattle. She was terrible at it and magnificent in her determination. Hay stuck in her long dark hair. Her designer boots ruined, her laughter echoing off the wooden rafters. He caught himself staring and looked away. "You are staring," she said. "I am assessing your agricultural potential. It is grim. I built a $6 billion company from nothing, and yet you cannot operate a hay bale. The universe has a sense of humor." She threw a handful of hay at him. He ducked, grinning, and for a single, suspended moment, they were just two people, unweighted by secrets, standing in a barn with the smell of cedar and cold air and possibility. That night, Vivian told him her secret. They were sitting close on the old leather couch, close enough that their shoulders touched. The fire was low. The wine was gone. The silence was the kind that either breaks apart or brings people together. When I was 23, she said quietly, I had a son. I was nobody then. A graduate student with no money, no family support, no partner. The delivery was complicated. They told me he did not survive. I held him for 11 seconds before they took him away. 11 seconds. I have counted them every day since. Caleb did not speak. He did not move. He barely breathed. 3 days ago, she continued, her voice fracturing, a man called me. A retired hospital administrator. He was dying and wanted to clear his conscience. He told me my son did not die. He was taken, sold, essentially, to a family. He is alive, Caleb. He is 25 years old, and he is alive, and I do not know his name or his face or whether he knows I exist. The silence that followed was immense. 25 years old. The number landed in Caleb's chest like a fist. He was 25, born in Montana, adopted by Thomas and Mary Mercer, who told him his birth mother had died. Adopted through an arrangement that Thomas never fully explained, through a hospital administrator who had called it a private adoption. The room tilted. The fire blurred. Caleb stared at the woman beside him, this woman he was falling in love with, and the darkest possibility he had ever imagined began to assemble itself in his mind, like a nightmare gaining form. He needed to know, and he was terrified to find out. Vivian, he said, and his voice was not witty, not armored, not casual. It was raw. What hospital? She looked at him, confused by the change in his tone. St. Catherine's. In Helena. Caleb closed his eyes. St. Catherine's. Helena. The same hospital listed on the adoption papers he had found in his father's desk after the funeral. The same city. The same year. He stood up abruptly. I need air, he said, and walked out into the cold before she could see his face collapse. That is the moment everything changes. If your heart is pounding right now, imagine how Caleb feels. Stay with me, because the next part of this story will leave you speechless. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because you do not want to miss the conclusion. Outside, the night was black and bitter. Stars burned through the clearing sky. Caleb leaned against the barn wall, his breath coming in ragged clouds, his hands shaking in a way that had nothing to do with cold. It might be coincidence. It might be nothing. 25-year-olds born in Montana were not exactly rare. But the hospital, the year, the story his father had told him, your birth mother loved you, but she could not keep you. She passed away, son. She is in heaven. A lie. All of it a lie. And if it was true, if Vivian Ashworth was his biological mother, then everything was different. His father's obsession with her was not just about the land deal. Thomas Mercer had known. He had known who she was and what she had lost, and he had kept Caleb anyway, raised him, loved him, and hated the woman he had taken him from. And Caleb had been falling in love with her. The nausea was immediate. He bent over, hands on his knees, gasping. But then another thought, colder and more rational, cut through the spiral. He did not know. He was assuming. He needed proof. And until he had proof, he could not say a word, because if he was wrong, he would detonate everything between them for nothing. And if he was right, his entire identity would unravel. And the woman inside would discover that the stranger who saved her in a blizzard was the son she had been searching for, and that he had originally brought her into his home, not to save her, but to confront her with a dead man's rage. He went back inside. Vivian was standing by the window, arms wrapped around herself, watching for him. The worry on her face when she saw him nearly broke him. "Are you all right?" she asked. "Fine." Cold air. Clears the head. He managed a version of his usual smile. "Also, I think one of the barn cats finally decided to murder me. She has been planning it for months." Vivian studied him. She was brilliant. He kept forgetting that. Brilliant and perceptive, and she knew something had shifted. But she did not press. She simply nodded and said, "Come sit by the fire. You look like you have seen a ghost." He had. His own. The next morning, while Vivian showered, Caleb did something he had sworn he would never do. He opened his father's old lockbox, stored in the back of the bedroom closet. Inside were the adoption papers, yellowed and creased. He read them with new eyes. Mother's name redacted. Hospital Saint. Catherine's Helena. Date March 14th. Attending Administrator Douglas Vance. Douglas Vance. The dying man who had called Vivian. Caleb sat on the edge of the bed, the papers trembling in his hands. And the truth settled over him like a second blizzard, quiet and total and inescapable. He was her son. The woman sleeping in his guest room. The woman who laughed at his jokes and threw hay in his hair and looked at him with eyes that held both sorrow and warmth. She was his mother, and the feelings he had been developing, the electric tension, the racing pulse, the desire to know everything about her, all of it had to be re-examined, reframed, understood differently. But here was the part that gutted him. The connection was real. The ease between them. The way they understood each other without explanation. The instinctive trust. It was real. It was not romance. It was something older, deeper, coded into blood and bone. He had been feeling the pull of a bond that was never supposed to be broken, reaching across 25 years of silence and lies. He was not in love with her. He was recognizing her. His body, his heart, his instincts, they had known before his mind caught up. She was home. She had always been home. Now he had to tell her, and he had to confess everything. Not just the truth about who he was, but the truth about why he had saved her. The anger. The red-circled photograph. The revenge he had carried like a stone in his chest since the morning he found his father in the barn. He had to tell her that he had hated her, and that the hate had been built on a foundation of lies. Lies told by a man who loved him, a man who stole him, a man who destroyed himself with the guilt of it. When Vivian emerged from the guest room, hair damp, face scrubbed clean of makeup, she looked younger, softer, almost fragile. She smiled at him, and the smile was so open, so unguarded, that Caleb had to turn away to steady himself. "Vivian, I need to tell you something." She sat down across from him at the kitchen table. The morning light was pale and honest through the window. "You look serious," she said. "Should I be worried?" "Probably." He tried to smile, failed. "I have not been honest with you about several things. And what I am about to say is going to be a lot. But you deserve the truth. All of it." He told her about his father, about Ridgewater, about the red, circled photograph, and the land acquisition that had destroyed his community. He watched her face change, confusion, then shock, then a slow, devastating recognition. "Oh God," she whispered. "The Ridgewater Project. 47 families," Caleb said quietly. "Mine was one of them. My father was the mayor. He fought it. He lost. And then he lost everything else." Vivian's hands covered her mouth. Her eyes were filling. "Caleb, that project was... I did not oversee the relocations. That was handled by my partner, Richard Greystone. But my name was on the company. My signature authorized it. I knew families would be displaced. I told myself it was progress. I told myself they would be compensated fairly. They were not. No, she whispered. I learned that later, and I did nothing. I was a coward. I chose the company. I chose profit, and people suffered. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Your father, he died 6 years ago. The sound she made was barely human. It was the sound of a woman who had built her empire on a graveyard she had refused to visit, and who was now standing among the headstones. But that is not the only thing I need to tell you, Caleb said. His voice was breaking now, the armor finally cracking, the witty deflections useless against the magnitude of what came next. He reached into his pocket and placed the adoption papers on the table between them. Vivian looked down. She read, and the world ended and began again in the space of a single breath. March 14th, she whispered. Cest Catherine's. Douglas Vance arranged it, Caleb said. My father, Thomas Mercer, he and my mother could not have children. Vance offered them a baby. A private adoption, he called it. They never knew the full story. Or maybe they did. Maybe my father found out later. Maybe that is why he was so obsessed with you, not just because of the land, but because he was afraid you would come looking. Afraid you would take me back. Vivian looked up at him. Really looked. And for the first time, she saw it. The shape of his eyes, the line of his jaw, the way he tilted his head when he listened. Her features translated through time and fatherhood and 25 years of separation. Caleb, she breathed. My birth name on the hospital record is Baby Boy Ashworth. She shattered. There is no other word. The composure, the boardroom steel, the billion-dollar armor, all of it fell away, and what was left was a 23-year-old girl who had held her son for 11 seconds and spent every day since counting them. She reached across the table and took his face in her hands, and she was sobbing, and he was sobbing, and neither of them could speak because language is too small for some truths. I looked for you. She finally managed. They told me you died. I held a funeral. I visit an empty grave every year on your birthday. Every year, Caleb. Every single year. I know, he said. I know. They held each other for a long time in that small kitchen, in that modest farmhouse, while the last of the storm clouds dissolved outside and sunlight spilled across the Montana mountains like a promise. If this moment has moved you, I need you to do something. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Send it to someone who understands what it means to search for the people who belong to you. And if you have not already, please like this video and subscribe to this channel, because stories like this deserve to be heard. But the story was not over, because 1,200 miles away, in a glass tower in Chicago, a man named Richard Greystone was watching the clock. Vivian had been unreachable for 4 days. The emergency board meeting he had secretly convened was scheduled for tomorrow morning. He had the votes. He had the proxies. He had spent 3 years carefully positioning himself to take control of Ashworth, Greystone Pharmaceuticals, and Vivian's mysterious disappearance was the final gift he needed. By tomorrow afternoon, she would be removed as CEO. Her shares would be diluted. Her life's work would belong to him. Richard Greystone was the kind of man who smiled at funerals. He had been Vivian's business partner for 15 years, and her secret adversary for 10. He had orchestrated the Ridgewater acquisition, not because it was necessary, but because it was profitable, and because the suffering of small people had never cost him a single night's sleep. He was polished, silver-haired, ruthlessly intelligent, and completely without conscience. When Vivian's phone finally found a signal on the fifth morning, she had 47 missed calls, 30 from her legal team and 17 from board members, warning her that Greystone was making his move. She stood in Caleb's kitchen, reading the messages, and her expression transformed from the softness of reunion to the steel of a woman who had not built an empire by being gentle. "I have to go back," she said. "I know," Caleb said. He paused. "I am coming with you." She looked at him. "Caleb, this is going to be ugly. Greystone is dangerous. He has been planning this for years. My father lost everything because nobody stood with him against powerful people. I will not make that mistake." He set his jaw. "Besides, you still cannot operate a hay bale. You clearly need supervision." She laughed through her worry, and the sound filled the kitchen like music. They drove together through the clearing roads, Caleb's old truck rattling toward the airport. On the way, Vivian made calls. Her voice on the phone was a weapon, precise, commanding, devastating. She rallied allies, threatened legal action, and dismantled 3 of Greystone's proxy votes in 40 minutes. Caleb watched with quiet awe. "You are terrifying," he said when she hung up. "Thank you. I have been practicing for decades." Clearly. In Chicago, the boardroom battle was swift and brutal. Vivian arrived unannounced, walked into the meeting Greystone had designed as her execution, and proceeded to dismantle his plan with evidence she had been quietly gathering for 2 years. She had known. She had always known he would betray her. She had simply been waiting for him to commit fully before she struck. Greystone's face when she presented the forensic audit, documenting his embezzlement, his secret dealings, his falsified reports, was the face of a man watching his own coffin being built in real time. "You should have let the blizzard take me, Richard," Vivian said calmly. "It would have been your only chance." He was removed from the board unanimously. Criminal charges followed within the week. But Vivian did not stop there. In the weeks that followed, she did something that shocked the business world. She established the Ridgewater Restoration Fund, a $200 million initiative to rebuild the community her company had destroyed. She personally contacted every displaced family. She sat in living rooms and listened to their stories. She did not make excuses. She did not hide behind corporate language. She simply said, "I am sorry. I failed you. Let me try to make it right." It would never be fully right. She knew that. Some wounds do not heal. Some people, like Thomas Mercer, were gone forever. But the trying mattered. The acknowledgement mattered. The willingness to stand in the wreckage of your own decisions and choose differently. That mattered. Caleb stood beside her through all of it. He was not her business advisor. He was not her protector. He was her son, publicly, joyfully, irrevocably her son. The DNA test was a formality. They both already knew. He kept the farm. He kept the cattle and the barn cats and the 6,000 books. But now, on the mantelpiece above the wood stove, beside the photograph of Thomas Mercer, whom Caleb still loved, complicated and painful as that love was, there was a new photograph. Vivian and Caleb, standing in the snow outside the farmhouse, squinting into winter sunlight, smiling the way people smile when they have walked through the worst of it and come out breathing on the other side. Vivian visited every month. She learned to feed the cattle. She was still terrible at it. Caleb still mocked her mercilessly. And she still threw hay at him, and the barn cats still regarded them both with aristocratic contempt. One evening, months later, they sat on the porch watching the sun sink behind the mountains. The sky was amber and violet and impossible. 11 seconds, Vivian said softly. That is how long I held you when you were born. 11 seconds. And I spent 25 years believing that was all I would ever get. Caleb reached over and took her hand. You have got a lot more than 11 seconds now. I know. She squeezed his hand. And I am going to make every single one of them count. The blizzard had tried to end her life. Instead, it gave her back the only thing her billions could never buy: her son. The truth she had been denied. The family she had grieved. And the proof that even in the coldest, darkest, most hopeless moments of our lives, light finds a way through. Sometimes carried by a stranger, sometimes carried by blood, sometimes carried by a young man with a sharp tongue and a wounded heart who walked into a storm because something deeper than anger told him to. We do not always get to choose our storms, but we choose what we carry into them. And sometimes the thing we carry out is more precious than anything we have ever held. If this story touched your heart, do me a small favor. Hit that like button. Leave a comment telling me what moment hit you the hardest. Subscribe to this channel so we can keep sharing stories that remind us what matters. And share this with someone who needs to hear that it is never too late to find what was lost, to right what was wrong, and to come home. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying until the end. I will see you in the next one.